he stayed until late at night. And like that, he had woven himself into her space without Emily knowing. He seamlessly blended into her world. In the quiet and shadowy part of the city, among those that you might not turn twice in their direction during the day, there's Simon. He's the kind of guy you'd pass by without a second glance, blending seamlessly into the bustling streets. Homeless. A few weeks ago, he lived in the affluence of a well-furnished apartment offered to him by using the crazy wilies of Tinder and the blessing of a nice face. But this is not where Simon's story starts. Simon's been surfing the concrete waves for a while now, battling struggle against the unforgiving streets. It's been a couple of months since he held to find comfort under the sky at night. It wasn't supposed to go on for as long as it did. There was a plan mapped out, but with a jobless, friendless guy at 32, making a monthly payment of $1,500 as required was not a luxury he could afford. It wasn't even a necessity he could muster. By day, he's the same homeless soul you'd pass by, his world packed into a tattered backpack and a fraying sleeping bag. Yet when the sun begins to go beyond the horizons, he transforms. It was his ticket to brief moments of warmth and respite. Simon's hiding spots are strategically chosen, places known only to a select few pigeons and alley cats. Beneath a graffitied bridge or within the labyrinthine subways, he stashes his meager belongings. A few worn clothes, a cherished photograph of a happier time as a kid before his teenage years, and a tattered journal filled with dreams. As dusk settles, he taps his way into a different reality. The glow of his phone screen illuminates a path to salvation, his digital portal to temporary refuge. His phone, the one thing of value in his life that he refused to pawn, was what set him up for a good time. But he found a way to mess that up, as he did every good thing in his life. His suave words and chameleon charm secured him invitations into cozy apartments, where walls replaced the cold pavement, and the cacophony of the streets give way to whispered confidences, his secret life hinging on anonymity, leaving no trace of his transient existence behind. He mastered how to sufficiently keep the day in the day. It wasn't so bad. Then he met Emily. That very evening, he was on his usual virtual wanderings across the suggestions on Hinge when the algorithm match led him to Emily. She was more than a mere profile picture. She was a beacon of empathy in a sea of indifference. Not that any of that mattered to him at the moment. Their conversations, initially a hesitant exchange of messages, gradually transformed into an effortless symphony of words. Emily's kindness radiated through her messages, and Simon found himself captivated by her warmth, drawn to her like a moth to a gentle flame. He waited, he baited, never requested to meet. He continued to play the pipes with Emily while continuing his midnight deceptions. He knew the ladies he took out. He made sure not to pick on the traditional women who wanted their men to pay. He settled for the less rigid, the woke, who either paid for themselves or asked that the bill be split. In cases of the latter, he always had the right story to string along. Somehow, they seemed to always fall for it. As his chats with Emily deepened, the idea of meeting in person began to brew between her. Emily, curious about the man behind the screen, proposed a rendezvous at a quaint cafe nestled in a quiet corner of the city. It was an invitation, but it felt like an offering of hope. Simon hesitated at first, his heart torn between his desire for connection and the web of secrecy he'd woven. But the promise of a warm conversation, the taste of a real meal, and the allure of a soft bed to rest his weary bones proved irresistible. 3 weeks down the line, they met. In the days that followed their initial meeting, Simon stepped into Emily's life, his true self shrouded in a web of deception. The first night, he was out by noon, but the next, he stayed until late at night. And like that, he had woven himself into her space without Emily knowing. He seamlessly blended into her world, helping with chores, preparing meals, and sharing stories that echoed with longing and vulnerability. In Emily's heart, trust began to take root. She saw in Simon a dependable companion, a kindred spirit with whom she could confide. The genuine laughter they shared, the late-night conversations, and the mundane moments of everyday life forged a bond stronger than either of them had anticipated. He did not need to ask to stay over. It became an unwritten agreement between both parties. As the days stretched into weeks, it all unraveled during an unexpected visit from Emily's sister, Lily, a vivacious and traditional woman who had no intention of settling for anything less than the truth. Lily's arrival was unexpected, and Simon's heart plummeted when he laid eyes on her. It wasn't just that he recognized her from a previous encounter, a rare instance where his charm had failed him and his instincts had deceived him. It was that he knew she recognized him too. Their past meeting had been memorable, to say the least. Lily had been a firebrand, refusing to settle the bill until Simon came clean about his situation. Her determination and refusal to be deceived had left an indelible mark on his memory. Now, here she was, staring at his supposed sister's boyfriend with a mixture of surprise and realization. What did Simon do? He bolted, the second thing he was good at. Feigning the need for coffee, he excused himself from the awkward reunion and slipped out into the bustling city streets. The cold air was a relief, but his heart was heavy with regret. Under the cover of night, Simon disappeared into the corners of the city, his steps taking him back to the familiar routine of searching for a place to rest his weary body. The cycle of apartment hunting, of pretending to be someone he was not, continued unabated. The streets welcomed him back, and Simon resumed his role as the elusive nomad, a ghost among the city's shadows. The encounter with Emily and her sister was a stark reminder that he could never leave this life, not in the way he thought.